provider of small sum loans, which if you borrow £500 from them over a year, you'd pay back how much in interest, do you think? So it's
500 again.
They're not quite that much. So as I say, this is not the very, very high cost end. You pay back £325, so you've borrowed 500, in total you pay back 825.
This is the mainstream supplier.
This is a relatively mainstream supplier. It's not a high street bank, but they're going to lend to you if you're borrowing this sort of amount. Particularly if you're in the sort of circumstances that mean that you are likely to be otherwise borrowing from these high cost people. The same £500 loan from the credit union. Any ideas how much that's going to cost? Bearing in mind you've got to pay for my Jaguar, bonus, there's the extensive
Bristol
suite, all these sorts of things. Less than 100. So £565 is what you pay back versus the 825. Now for the sort of people who are borrowing those sorts of sums, that's 2 weeks or 3 weeks of their benefits in many cases, or their fairly low wages because they're in the sort of job which means they're not earning a lot of money. And that's a big, big difference between making your money stretch a bit further and not. It also, in terms of the context of the Bristol pound and localism, it means that that money is then available to be spent. So it's not immediately going out in a loan repayment, it's an interest payment to a national company that's giving it back to its shareholders. It's 250 quid that's going to be spent around local businesses and local organisations. Even if it's not entirely spent locally, it's going to have at least, if nothing else, it's going to have at least that 20% effect that comes with the sterling that's spent in large companies. Now if that money had gone out of the area immediately in interest payments, we wouldn't even get that. So I think it's a really tangible example of the difference that credit union makes. So, in terms of today's theme, we're all about trying to make our money count. If you are still giving generously to support bank profits, then do think about moving your money. If you are thinking about moving your money, think about Bristol Credit Union if you're local. If you're not local and you want to look at the credit union, there is a website called findyourcreditunion.co.uk, and if you put in a postcode or a town or anything else and search, it'll tell you what your nearest one is. So it's something that is easy to do. You can join online now, as I mentioned. I was very pleased. I went to Ciaran Bank quite recently to just talk to them about what we're doing here, what they're up to. And we have online membership before they've got the ability to open an account online, so that was quite a nice thing, nice feather in the cap. And you can do that through bristolcreditunion.org. And here's our suspension bridge picture, because you have to have one because it's Bristol.
Yeah.
So any questions at all? Anything anybody would like to know? Well,
I was wondering, what were the two questions? What's the 4 million of assets? Roughly, what does that represent? And secondly, this business of membership. Have there been times in the past 13 years where the membership has really changed the direction or asserted its power, or you've used it creatively in that way?
well, let's go to the first one first. The £4 million is primarily people's savings. So people who save with us, obviously that is part of that 4 million. There's a chunk of it that is money that we had from the last government, which they gave, well they didn't give, we had a contract with them which was to provide more affordable credit to people in the local area because they could see the benefit of having people paying less in interest, which was then going to go outside the area, and the difference that would make to what people could do with their limited budgets. So part of the assets are money that we got through that contract, which we managed and which is now the credit unions. So that's where the 4 million comes from in total. In terms of the direct control of membership, and I guess the good example of that is Baines particularly. We started off originally, there were 4 small credit unions around Bristol, so my first job once I was a volunteer director of the credit union, all our directors are volunteers. So I was a volunteer director for 3 years whilst I was still working in Bank of Ireland, which was where I was working at the time. So they happily sponsored the credit union without knowing it for 3 years. Well, my first job after I left the bank and became more full-time involved in the credit union was putting together 4 smaller credit unions to form Bristol. After that, we merged with the local city council credit union, because the city council used to have one just for its staff, and we, subsequent to that, brought in the Baines credit union, because there used to be one down in Baines. They struggled quite a bit because they didn't get the resources for whatever reason that we had in Bristol. So we brought them into Mundy. Now, we said at the time, look, really, we've got our current membership base, they're all Bristol-based. You've got to understand that we're going to try and help you out. We don't want you to fail or go bust or anything like that. We'd rather bring you in, but we've got to understand that there's going to be a limit to what we can do initially in terms of expansion, because we've got a city that's there already. So a couple of AGMs later, they came back to us and said, well, it's a couple of years down the line now, you're still doing lots of good things in Bristol, that's wonderful. What are you going to do for Baines? And that was really a really good reminder to us that actually, we're sat there in Stokes Croft. It's not too far to Bath, but I live over the road in Stokes Croft as well, so I don't get that far that often. And it was just a really good reminder. And so following that, we went and we have opened up a new outreach point down in Baines. So we go there, member staff goes there only once a week at the moment, but something that happens because of that direct feedback from members. And we do always say to people, we get things wrong from time to time, obviously like anybody does. And we always say to people, please tell us, because we want to know and we want to put things right, or if there's something that we could do better, or something we could improve. Again, please tell us, because we are only as good as our members, but we are a collective, a cooperative.